Hey everyone, Yan Zhao here. Tonight we have Jason Crager, the artist, the creative force behind Hammer, a post-Ragnarok tale. How you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
I am excellent.
Nice.
So we were just talking a little bit backstage about comics and art and artists. So I was looking over your campaign, and you have a story down at the bottom. Why don't you give everyone a little background? How did you get interested in comics?
So, my first comic books that I ever saw when I was younger was Martial Law. That was the first book I ever saw, and I was in 8th grade. My friend Jason Gonzalez, who did the 6-page story in my book of Star of Asgard and their mighty hammer, he wrote and penciled and inked that. He also does La Mano del Destino, which was a successfully run campaign for Kickstarter, and that's in fulfillment. And he showed me this book, and I was just shocked by it. Like, the first 2 books I think I saw were Martial Law and like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then right after that, my freshman year of high school, I saw Grips, which was a Tim Vigil book with Chris Silver. And Silver Wolf Comics, so it's black and white. And, I think they were limited to, like, I don't know, 10,000 copies or something, because it didn't sell a lot, but it sold a lot for an underground book. And I started being very interested in comics at that time. And then I collected through the boom. So X-Men 1, Spider-Man, all that stuff. And that's high school for me. And right out of high school, I started working professionally at the behest of Joe Weems, who was an inker at Harris Comics at the time. And he had just gotten his first gig. We had met at a Sequoia convention in Orange County, which was a local comic convention that happened like monthly. And we met there. We exchanged numbers, and he gave me a call on his first gig and was like, I need somebody to come help me, like, fill in the blacks on the page. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I went over and spotted some blacks, and from that point on, I considered myself a comic book artist, and I just kept working and moving up the ladder in different places. Like, I started helping Joe ink full pages as opposed to just spotting pages. I've always been a penciler and an artist and a painter, so I did that in between. And I just worked on my chops right out of high school. So, and eventually, I would eventually get little gigs here and there with some bigger companies, and like Caliber and Top Cow and Avatar. And I would do ink work, usually spotting or assistant work for Marvel and DC. So I was kind of spread out all over the place, and then I ended up becoming an art director and kind of learned the whole behind the scenes type stuff. So I did that for a little bit, and that was fun and interesting, and I lettered a bunch of books, so I got to see every aspect of it. And if I worked at a printer also, so I was able to kind of get the whole thing. So, and then at that time, like, the comic book industry changed a whole lot. And this was probably in the last, I don't know, 15 years. and I kind of dipped out. I was just like, I'm done drawing comics. I'm done messing around with this stuff. It doesn't pay what it used to. It's a young man's game. I can't stay up all night and frickin' ink and draw.
Yeah.
And because I did everything conventionally at that time. I mean, I did everything pencil on paper and inked it, and it was just a hassle. So I stopped doing that, and I started focusing on painting, just doing the stuff I like to do. I only did work that I wanted to do. I stopped taking any work from anyone else. Got a regular job, and I decided to take up sculpting about 10 years ago. So I started sculpting, and that just kind of led to doing art again, where I ended up drawing a book for somebody. And then right at the end of doing that, I decided to launch Hammer because it was the pandemic. And I got a gig for another 4 issues, like 2 months after essentially funding Hammer.
Nice.
And yeah, it kind of worked out. And I'd gone digital in between that time. Like I'd penciled Hammer physically, and I started scanning the pages, and I'd bought a computer and a Hunon pad with a pen to like ink digitally. And I started inking my Hammer stuff that way. Like, oh, this could go faster. That's cool. And excuse me. So I kind of abandoned the physical artwork for, I don't know, a year and a half. And I just put my head down, did 4 issues of Kill Journal for Gifted Rebels and Adam Lawson. And then I got back to Hammer and was like, shit, I need to deliver on this, and it needs to be good. And I looked at what I had and realized that I wasn't going to be able to deliver what I think I should have delivered. So I redrew that whole book and inked it, and I'm very happy with it now. And
yeah.
Go ahead.
I took a look at the PDF, and I have to say it looks amazing. I remember when you had originally launched the campaign, and stuff looked pretty good then. But of course, when you're launching a campaign, you don't have so much artwork to display at the start.
Right.
But I am very impressed at how well it all came together. There's a lot of comics where, I'm always a little nervous when you see the crowdfunders. It's pretty easy to get someone to draw like 3 really nice pictures, a crowdfund based on that. And then what you get is like, oh, that's nothing like what I was sold.
Right. And that's the thing. Hammer has a look to it, so I had to match that. And it kind of came together when I realized that I wasn't going to do it in color. Like when I was speaking with Gifted Rebels, because right after I finished Kill Journal, they told me that they wanted to buy Hammer from me.
Oh.
So I was like, oh, like, how, what do you mean? And they were like, well, we want to license it and distribute it and make like role-playing games and make, cool. Stuff like, yeah. So, cause that's what they do. The company that, I work with, their big in was doing role-playing games, and they had done really well. $100,000+ campaigns, stuff like that. And they delivered, and that stuff was awesome. So they hit me up, and they were just like, hey, we want to hit you up and do this. We want it to be epic. So I kind of had to live up to all that too. Like I knew that this first issue had to be really, really solid. And the more solid it was, the better inevitably it would look in the long run, like down the line, because it would just keep getting better and better. So yeah,
I mean, I think you're right. You definitely got to deliver on that first one, because if the first
Right.
one's so, are people really gonna come back?
That's true. That's true.
And
The PDF actually is 4 pages short. Like I added 4 more
oh,
pages to it to kind of level things out. And I added some extra art, and I didn't extend the story. I
mhm.
just spread that prose story out a little bit so it had room to breathe. So I added 2 pages to that, so it wasn't all crammed into those 4 pages. And then I added 2 new pieces of art. One of them was supposed to be in the book in the first place. And so, yeah, it worked. It worked for me. So it's a 52-page book instead of a 48-page book.
Nice. And so now that the PDF is done, is it going to print soon, or do people still have time to get in on this campaign?
They do. They still have time to get in on the campaign. It's been streamlined just for that. And yeah, I think it's actually going to go to the printer probably in the next 2 weeks. I was talking with Adam, and we were ironing out a few things on my end. And once we had figured that out, I delivered Saturday, and he's out of town for the week because he shoots commercials and other stuff on the side. In between writing for like Netflix and HBO Max and all that stuff. So he's super busy, and he has a new baby too. It's like 4 months old. So he's probably helping his partner Ari on a commercial shoot somewhere, and they're usually like in Mexico somewhere or something like that. So he's busy doing that currently. So yeah, it's going to be probably up and in demand for a little while longer. And after that, it will end up in the giftedrebels.com store, where you could actually pick up right now Kill Journal through them. So either the soft cover or the hardcover version also.
Oh, very nice. So tell us a little bit about Hammer while we're here on the Indiegogo page. So I found this to be quite an interesting story. It has to do with Norse mythology, and what I don't like in a lot of modern comics is either it's just like a straight retelling of the story. So somebody's drawing actually Norse people or Greek gods or whatever, or it's just completely out there. But this one, I really like how you riff on a lot of those old themes, but you arrange it in a new way.
Correct. I do kind of arrange things to kind of fit my need, but I am trying to stay somewhat faithful to the original stories. It just so happens that opening sequence where Jormungandr and Thor are fighting, I needed something to tell everybody what my comic was about. And the best way to do that for me was to get right to it, to essentially just show you something so epic that it just sets the tone for everything else. And so that was my thinking in reference to that. But, the Nordic mythology was told by word of mouth for hundreds of years. And a lot of what we ended up getting were kind of exaggerations of those ideas and so on and so forth. And that's kind of what I've done also. Like, I'm staying faithful to a certain extent, but it's like me telling you how it should be. Now, I also believe that Ragnarok is one of those things that's secular, and it kind of happens over and over and over again. And if one kicks off and it doesn't meet the criteria to finish, to be the end of all things, then it kind of kicks off again, like gets rebooted again. And that's kind of what they imply when they talk about Ragnarok, that it's a thing that's supposed to happen over and over and over again. And this is just one of those instances that we're seeing. So the story may not be exactly how it's depicted in the Norse mythology, but I try to make it close. And I also try to make it interesting in the fact that I'm telling a story from the future point of view. Like, as you pointed out before, in my world, everybody believes in the Nordic gods. Well, there was an event that actually happened, which I will show, I think somewhere in the 3rd issue. You'll get an inkling of it by the end of the 2nd issue. And it will let you know why everybody believes in the Nordic gods. And it was taken upon that idea. So let's see. So does this take place after the world serpent has been let loose and gods have fought to the death? So yeah, it actually does. So the serpent has been let loose. Thor and Jormungandr have it out. And several gods have died or gone into hiding. So this is, Ragnarok didn't take place like over a 3-year time period. It's taking place over like a 400-year time period. Like, what's time to a god, by the way? Like, when we're talking about, like, they even talk about that in the Donny Cates Thor, that Thor has fought so many times that he doesn't remember every single battle he's ever fought. He just knows he's fought a lot of battles. And if
too many to keep track of.
Right. It's so many. So it's, where was I? What was I saying?
Oh,
I was
sorry.
No, it's okay.
Time over a couple 100 years or 400 years.
Right. So let's say, Jormungandr and Thor have it out. So let's say that takes place for 400 years in the past. Maybe the whole poisoning of the oceans could have happened because of that, or it was implied because of that, or maybe we just poisoned the oceans. So as far as Heimdall is concerned, the death of Jormungandr poisoned part of our oceans. So, and he knows this because he's the watcher of all things. He's considered as powerful as Odin in certain cases. And he's the watcher like the watcher is for the Marvel universe. Like, he can watch, but he can't stop anything. He can nudge things, but he can't
directly intervene.
He can't directly intervene. And at some point, you'll realize why he can't directly intervene, because I have a whole story about that. So I lean into it more than try to retell it. And by leaning into it and being faithful to it, like if I send my character to hell, I should have her talk to Balder, right? And if she talks to Balder, like, he should probably mention that he was killed by mistletoe and that Loki fucking did it, right?
Yep.
Like, I'm putting my character in that situation and then I'm explaining it. And it kind of makes it just makes it interesting. Like, if I told you some guy's in hell because he got, killed by mistletoe, it's not gonna have the same effect as if I send one of my characters to hell, like through an arduous task. And when she gets there, she meets this beautiful person that is there, and everybody loves him and knows him. And then they have that conversation. And then if you go to look it up, you can find out that he did die from those things. And then I was somewhat faithful, even though I retold it in another way.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's kind of like the beauty of the writing in this, is that, like you said, the traditions were all oral until somebody wrote them down probably a couple hundred years ago. But the retelling like this, it still has a mythic feel to it, because it's like, there's no one definitive version of those old stories, because different people wrote it down different ways and whatnot. And this feels like it's just a continuation of that in closer to a modern setting.
Yes, very much so. And you were right in saying that it would be a good book for people who aren't interested in this type of stuff, and then them becoming interested in it. That's how I became interested in stuff. Like, comics were more than just comics when I was younger. They talked about things that we had no idea about, and now it's commonplace,
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's just, how else are you supposed to learn these things? And as I said, it was a side effect of writing the story. Like, you just want to know more. And I try to leave things open to a certain extent. I give just enough information to keep moving forward. Essentially, in creating this book, it was meant to be super visual, and the story was never meant to stop the forward progress of the art for me. And not that I wouldn't work things out, like I realize the beats of a story. So, but if the story somehow stopped the reader, or it wasn't clear what was going on, or like, I would rework that, because it was super important that it be a super easy, fast, even though I'm using big words, and it's a super complicated story that's so big, I still didn't want to feel like I was talking over people's heads. So I feel like it's a very good introductory book for any age person. My 12-year-old read it, and he was super, super excited.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, so just for anyone who didn't see it, I made a review of the PDF a few days ago. And one of the things I was talking about is, this is a much more accessible version of classic stories than what most people get in education, at least in North America. Like, especially when you get into high schools, and well, even elementary schools, it's just so boring. Shakespeare is presented in such a boring way. Nobody ever likes to read this stuff in there. But these classics have been around for thousands of years, and the reason is because they're dealing with issues that people have had in their everyday life. And it's a shame that younger people don't have access to it. But by reading something like this, it makes it more relevant to people in the modern age. But it still has that classical element. Like, one of the things I like the best, well, I shouldn't say I like the best, but that I think was a very smart decision is, you take, I think it was 2 pages in the beginning. You've got like definitions and locations, so you can use all of those Norse terms. I think one of the problems with a lot of the modern books is they want to talk down to people. So, like, I'm in my mid 40s. When I was a kid, we were expected to read sort of adult level books by around age 10. And that doesn't seem to be the case to me anymore. I see some things that 14-year-olds are reading, and at the time, Lord of the Rings and even some of the classics you could read and stuff. But these days, I don't know, the YA culture and everything is dumbed down. So I think younger people especially, but anybody who's kind of interested in a topic, they're hungry to learn more. So I think using the big words and just giving them a few small definitions is fantastic. And when they're like, oh, hey, this is cool, I wonder what this is about, then they'll go look up more, whether it's Wikipedia or maybe even crack a real book.
Right. That would be cool. I had a different experience growing up with Shakespeare and stuff like that. I was always into different types of art and poetry and stuff like that. So I was introduced to Shakespeare, I don't know, probably in junior high. And it didn't really bother me at first. Like I just remember it being very convoluted and trying to kind of figure out what they were saying. And luckily I had a really good teacher, and she would like say a sentence. Thank you, Trenton. She would say a sentence and then ask us what we thought it meant. And then we would, kind of tell her, and then she would explain it to us. But when I realized that certain movies and certain things were just retellings of Shakespeare's work, like Romeo and Juliet and West Side Story, right?
Yes.
West Side Story is essentially Romeo and Juliet, right? So you can watch West Side Story and still kind of get the gist of Romeo and Juliet. And I remember seeing Taming of the Shrew. See, me and you are close in the same age. Do you remember a show called Moonlighting?
Oh, yeah,
with Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd?
Yeah.
Well, they did a version of Taming of the Shrew as one of the episodes. And it was brilliant, right? It was fucking Bruce Willis, excuse my language, doing Shakespeare. And it was hilarious to me. And I just remember how fun I thought it was. Like, yeah, I couldn't understand like most of the stuff they were saying, but the language was only part of it for me. And I just liked it. It was really cool. So I remember as I got older, I ended up liking like people like Edgar Allan Poe, Guter, and Walt Whitman, and people like that, Dead Poets Society, all those, Tennyson, and all that stuff became very interesting to me. And all of my friends hate Shakespeare, and to this day I love Shakespeare. Like King Lear is such a good fucking play, and I don't know how else to explain it to people other than just get past the language. Like sit down and actually slow your brain down enough to actually understand the sentences. And once you do, it becomes brilliant. Shakespeare was such a smart, witty writer, and he was funny. And a lot of people don't get that because the language kicks their ass.
Yes. Well, in a lot of ways, that's why I think something like this, where if you have a more modern version first, like for example, if you see West Side Story first, and then you see Romeo and Juliet, you sort of already understand where the story's going. So it's the specific verbiage, the wording is not such a barrier, and it's you can pick it up more. The thing is, if the way I see it is, most teachers make it so boring, and I personally think a lot of them don't really understand the source material is part of the problem. But if you read it through one time and it's a painful read, I don't think anybody's ever going back, and I think that's a lot of the problem.
Right. Right. That's what I was trying to avoid with it. I knew I was dealing with a heavy, like language barrier.
Mm-hmm.
Like the stories are easy, the language is hard. And if I was going
Yes.
to be faithful to it, I had to use the language. I had to make it commonplace for us,
Mm-hmm.
which is what I had hoped. Not only me,
Oh, you're cutting out there.
art partner,
Uh-oh.
Marley.
All right. Does anyone hear me? Is it me or is it Jason? Oh boy.
Oh,
There? Hello?
hello.
Oh. Okay.
We're back.
Hey, there you go.
We're back. So, I don't even remember now.
Sorry
The
about
robot
that.
strikes the ending. No, it's okay. It's okay. No, I think you're right. I think you're right about, how you're introduced something. And if you're introduced to it like slowly, different ways, it will appeal to you in certain ways. And maybe you can get past certain things. Like, have you ever tried reading Voice of the Fire by Alan Moore? The first 52 pages of that book are written in a proto language
that sounds like a very Alan Moore
by the
thing
time
to do.
you right, it's written in a proto language, so by the time you're done with the 50 pages, you're like thinking like how he writes, and that language to you is now real words. And to understand it, I actually had to call a friend of mine who had read it and be like, compare notes, like, hey, did he mean this when he said this, and did that really happen? Yes. Okay, well, that's what and it was so cool, but it took me, I don't know, 4 hours or something like that to like read those 50 pages, because I had to like literally slow myself down and just kind of think it through. And not everybody has the ability to do that. Like, it's hard. Language is hard. And this is what I was saying. My co-contributor and art partner, Marco Gali, like when I came up with this, like, and we started talking about what I wanted to do, he very much so leaned into the idea that we need to be faithful to a certain extent. And if we're going to be faithful, that we need to be semi-hardcore about it. But I give him rules. I was like, and those two rules were: the art dictates the flow of the story. And if at any time the word balloons or the story becomes so convoluted that it stops the reader, then we need to rethink it and fix it. And essentially, very little was changed as we built the first issue, because we had hard rules, and Marco is such a good storyteller in his own right, that as I threw more and more stuff at him, he wrapped it around his comic book brain, because he's a big comic book guy too. Hey, Ryan. And was able to kind of convey or help me convey what I was really trying to say. So I can thank Marco Gali for that. He he's as essential to the writing process as the art dictating it. Like, he just he's a good wordsmith. I'm okay, but if I tell him I want something written in a certain type of language or has to have a certain type of feel to it, like, he understands that, and then we go with that. So he's good about sticking to it, and he'll argue his points from a very smart place usually. Let's see, the robot strikes again. I hear you, story. Yo, hey Ryan, nice.
So I think we're all caught up there. So I had some questions about the art too.
Sure.
You know, I definitely think you were 100% right to go with black and white for this book. What made you decide to do that? You know, these days a lot of people say like, "Oh no, I want a color." So what made you say, "Nah, black and white"?
I kind of thought it would be nice to have just a super simple black and white book that had good contrast in it. You don't need color if you do good art. It doesn't have to be. Like, if things are solid, it's solid. Sometimes coloring does a lot of heavy lifting to show form, and I kind of felt that that's cheating for me. And black and white is cheaper also to print. And I just thought true. Going black and white would probably be my best bet. And if I did want to do it in color, I could, of course, do it in color later, is what I was thinking. Like, why don't I do it in black and white? And then if it does okay, I'll color it and we'll do that. And eventually that idea got tossed out. Like, we were just like, nope, we're not going to color it. It's going to be black and white. And that's when I started adding all the zipatone to it. All those little dots.
Okay. Yeah,
that are all over it. Like,
I think thematically it works really well because, you know, in our history, movies were black and white up until somewhere in the 40s. And it wasn't until the 50s where they were regularly in color. So it has sort of like a mythic, old-timey feel to it, which I think adds a lot to the story. But, you know, these days manga is so popular, and manga is almost always black and white. Do you see any sort of like resurgence in the US for black and white comics, you know, especially with kids these days now more used to seeing black and white?
I not at the level of American comics. Like, manga sells really well here, and I see that being a really big, like, huge thing. But if you're to take an American artist like me that doesn't really draw manga, and I do something like this, I'm not going to get manga numbers.
Sure.
And I don't know if it's a stylistic thing on my part, like black and white is black and white, right? But it's really not. So some people like more expressive faces, some people like more cartoony design work, whereas I kind of lean into realism. I just try to just do the best me. So, and in doing so, I really thrive in the black and white end of the pool. Like, I get my shapes and contrasts and stuff like that. So I think I sing in black and white, and that's probably the best. That would be the best thing for this book.
Yeah, I think so too. So do you think it's like that specific art style in manga that makes that popular? Or do you think that there's something else that's really driving the popularity, at least compared to more traditional American comics?
Art in story basically would do that. And the fact that manga has younger readers. So we didn't have, like when we were growing up, it would have been Thundercats, Mask, Transformers. We didn't get those comic books till later, till we were in our like 17, 18. And then now we're too old to be reading Transformer comics, so we got movies. And I think if we'd have had Transformer comic books in 1980, we'd have bought the hell out of that. And I think that that's part of the manga thing too. Like they have these shows like JoJo and stuff like that. And like my son knows a bunch of anime shows. So if I take him to a bookstore, he goes right to the anime section and we'll start looking through those books. And it's because of the shows he sees on TV. And especially here in America. Let's see. The one advantage I think most American artists have over manga is black and white, is that subtly can be conveyed better. Yes, manga has to be flashy because the characters don't have detail. Yeah, that could be one side of that too. Absolutely. So that they're doing so much that they have to do a lot of speed lines and stuff like that because they're, you know, I heard that some of the manga people, they do like a book a week or something like that. It's freaking crazy.
Yeah, they're crazy. I mean, it's a little, the whole thing is a little different once you get into that sort of higher level.
Right.
Just because then you can afford assistance, you know, and like maybe you're doing roughs, but other people will finish it off for you. And I mean, there is some stuff like that too, like Mark Silvestri at Top Cow, when he was doing his second time on X-Men, you know, he would draw like the characters and stuff and then send it off to other people to fill in the backgrounds. So, you know, there is some precedent for that here, but yeah, I mean, there's a term in Japanese, kuroshi, which means death by overwork. And that's exactly what happens to a lot of manga creators.
Right. Because they just, absolutely. I don't know any kids that read comics or manga. Even my shop says it's all adults buying their manga. That's true. I mean, I own some Junji Ito like stuff. My son doesn't, but you know, his interests lie in the anime. So whenever he asks me for something, it's always anime end of stuff. So when we go to the comic book store, he doesn't want to look at American comics. He wants to look at like Japanese comics. He even picked up a Godzilla comic because that's closer to Japanese than anything else, right?
Yeah.
So there wasn't anything even close in the shop. So it was just like, here's as close to a manga as you're going to get. Here's Godzilla. And he picked that up. All JoJo and Blade of the Immortal are good examples of good characters that can be identified by facial features. Yes, they are. So, you know, it is what it is. I'd love to be able to tap into the manga market, but, you know, I feel that some mangas are, like the stories are lacking. Like they have really good concepts that just fall apart in the long run. But the books are so much different than the shows. And like I've read, you know, Gaio Uzumaki and Planet Ramina, and they're all amazing, like reads, but I haven't seen Uzumaki or the Spiral Syndrome, you know, animated. So I know it's been done. I just haven't seen it. And I don't know how close it is to the book, but it is what it is. And as long as you're still trying to tell, I guess, the same story or near the same story and get the same information out there, maybe more interest will grow in it. That's the kind of thing with Hammer too. Like I'm trying to build a world that's bigger than just the Norse stories that it comes from, so that there's room to grow.
Yeah, I think that's that is one of the benefits of manga, and I can definitely, from reading the story, I can definitely see where it could go in the future. So I think I read on the Indiegogo site or either on your Facebook page, you're planning 10 books?
Correct.
Or
There's 10 issues in all. So issue 2 will be launching into January, early February. I should be done with it by then. So I don't want anybody to have to wait for my books anymore. So
oh wow.
In order for me to launch a campaign, I got to be finished with my book.
Nice.
So that's what's going on from now on. So expect many issues, probably every 3 to 4 months. I should hopefully be delivering. So, hopefully, like that's the main idea right now, and I can do that. It took me about 3 months to pencil and ink like all of the story.
From 3 months to pencil and ink the issue 2 or all 10 issues?
Issue 1.
Oh, issue 1. Okay, all right.
To do issue 1. I realize it took a year for it to come out, but that's because I did Kill Journal for like 7 of those months, which was almost 100 pages. So when I got back to Hammer, I re-penciled 95% of the book, and then I inked it, and that took me about 3 months.
Oh, okay.
Maybe a little more. So
then theoretically, you could get 3-4 issues out in a year.
Oh yes, absolutely, and that's what I plan on doing. So I'm done waiting. Let's see. I have a question that may ruffle your feathers, but I'm going to do it anyway. With the identity politics playing with these days, why did you have a woman with the side shaved? What influenced this design choice? I just wanted a chick with a mohawk. She was based upon Storm originally, when she got Mjolnir's hammer in X-Men number 10 annual. I essentially wanted a character. I wanted to draw Storm as Mjolnir, or as Thor, and I just kind of ran with it. Now, the thing about this character is like, her hair design is probably going to change later on down the line during the issues. So her hair is going to grow out. She isn't going to be like having the same haircut the whole time. And I think that shows a progression in time also. Like, how many characters do you see actually grow hair during the 10 issues that they're part of? From like no hair to having hair. Very few. So it was just the design choice to originally set up the character.
Yeah, I like that idea. And for me, since it's a post-apocalyptic world, there's certain, let's say, iconic features or, what am I thinking of? I'm losing the word. Like visual shorthands, And if you look at all those 80s movies, like all the punks in the future have like they have mohawks, right? Now usually they're like green or blue or something, but that totally makes sense. If you got cyberpunk, you have to have like dingy cities with tons of neon. Sure. So I like that it does play into the visual iconography, yes, of the genre.
Right. And I know it's cliche, and everybody kind of is like, it's Tank Girl with with a hammer. And I get that, okay, but that's the point. Like, she's more than that. I'm just not playing her as Tank Girl or Storm with Mjolnir. She's going to be her own person, and you just got to kind of wait it out and get past the familiarness of it to realize that it's more than just that. So, and as the book goes on, her hairstyle will change. She'll look different, and that will be that. So yes, she will evolve. Influence this design choice. She will evolve as a character. Then nice. Okay. Oh yeah.
That going back to an extent of one of the things I think manga has going for it, at least versus the big two in the US, is that in the big two everything is the same. Peter Parker is basically the same guy he was in 1970. Maybe some of the costumes change slightly, but there's not that much change. Whereas to me, it's nice that that what happens in your story has consequences to the character and their world.
Right. I learned that when you're writing something that there's consequences to things. It's not just you're telling a story and you go, this character does this and then this happens, and then this character does this and this happens. No, it's this character does this, but this happens, therefore this happens. So there's consequences to everything, and there's no just this. So I really try to even explain little things, like me just telling you a little bit about the character who had broken legs, like that one page of just that not only told you a bit about the Dragar and the robots and the sentient creatures, but it told you a little bit about Feral, told you a little bit about the ramifications thereof of dealing with things like this, and how there is no hospitals, how there is no anything. He had to just figure it out. And there are consequences to that stuff. So, and he points it out like glaringly to you. So, and I think that's a good part of setting up storytelling. I kind of learned that from South Park, actually. So they're probably some of the best storytellers. It's unreal.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about the show with a character who's literally a piece of poo. Those writers actually, they have pretty good heads on their shoulder, and there are some good videos on YouTube where it's like them talking to like film schools, like writing classes and stuff, and you watch it and you're like, oh, there's definitely more going on in these shows than you think on the surface.
Right. Like they could really write whatever they wanted to set out to write. They did the Book of Mormon. They did all that. Dude, just the amount of work they do. Hold on. I got to let the cat out. Hold on.
No problem.
One second. What are you doing?
All right. So for anyone who's watching, if you are watching the stream, in the description, there is a link to go to see the Indiegogo if you're interested. And here is another one. Yes, it's very long. Just click in the in the scrolling chat stuff there.
So let's see.
All right. All right. So of the campaign, what would you recommend for people to buy? If they're sort of on the fence, what level you think they should back?
Well, if you're on the fence and you really, and you just, I don't know, if you just want to, if you want to get the most bang for your buck, I would get the Loki, because it comes with both signed books, like the casting of Loki. I can even show you like what it looks like. I painted one up.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't have his horns on, but this is what it looks like all casted up.
Pretty cool.
And it says, Loki on the face of it. And I'll sign the bottom of them for everybody.
Nice.
And yeah, So it'll come in 4 pieces. So the base, the head, and the 2 horns, and it all goes together. So that's the most bang for your buck. And I think there's only a few more available. So that one's probably the best one because it gets you a sculpture. And these sculptures I casted them all myself. They're all, hand done by me. So I didn't farm them out to anybody else. I sculpted it all myself. I made all the molds. So yeah, I would think that's the most bang for your buck. So either that one or the art tier. And if you get the art tier, you end up getting, and it's my choice, you end up getting a piece of art, 8 by 10. Let me see if I can find my example that I had sitting around there that is now missing. It was of a berserker that I drew. I think I put it over here. Hold on.
And Trenton says, I guess it's a good thing mainstream media has pushed me away, and I just quit all nicotine. More money for indie creators, too.
Nice. Well, good. Does that mean that you're backing my campaign, Trenton? Is that what you're implying, my friend? Let's see. I can't seem to find this piece of art. Where did it go? Hold on. Well, it was here. I have no idea what I did with it, but it was a nice little sketch, and it was ink and beautiful. And I wish I could find it so I could show you, because it's a really good example of what I'm going to send out to people. I don't know what I did with it. Okay. Well, I give up. I'm not going to look if it's not on the surface. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's not here, and I don't know where it went. Darn it. Okay. Well, at least on the campaign, you can actually see what the art tier, like the kind of art that I would be delivering. It would be either a beautiful woman or a nice piece of art. Some people, I don't know, I'd probably contact them beforehand, but like I would send them something like this if they were interested in that.
Oh, nice. That's cool. Wow.
So, like I'm just doing a bunch of different types of sketches for people. So if hopefully they'll like them. If they don't, they'll let me know. I'm sure they will. I'm sure they'll tell me. They'll just be like, that was terrible. Don't buy the art tier.
All right. So anyone who is interested, the Indiegogo is still there, but maybe not for too much longer. So go check it out. Place your order. There's a link in the description to this stream.
Nice.
All right. And let's see here. Oh, Trenton. I think that was to your question if he's going to back it. Yes, I will be. I'm trying to decide if I want sculptor or art.
Perfect. Yeah, just let me know. Either one is open.
Any final thoughts? Anything we should know about the campaign, about you? Oh, sorry, I did have one more question. You mentioned Adam Lawson was talking about a game. Could there maybe be a game, like either tabletop or some sort of role-playing game in the future?
Yes, for sure, actually. So we were talking about two separate games,
Oh.
a skirmish game
Hmm.
and then a full-blown RPG game, like Asunder.
Nice.
Yeah, so something like that. So, but he wants to do something like that after we finish all 10 issues. So in like the next
Yeah.
couple years. So,
Yeah, more depth to the game if it's
oh
the
yeah.
whole universe you create.
Yeah, imagine being able to buy the game and then get, the all 10 issues of Hammer with it.
Yeah.
How cool would that be?
That would be awesome.
So I think that's the end of the pool that Adam is leaning into right now.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's nice to see him expanding out too.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I love him. He's
Yeah,
great.
I had him on about a month ago to talk about kids in backpacks.
Oh, the Kids and Monsters.
Or
Yeah.
Kids and Monsters, that's it.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, I've been pumping that out myself for him.
All right, so now finally, are there any last things we should know about the campaign or anything? Or
know that these first issues that are coming out will probably be the only ones that I ever sign. So if you're interested in getting my signature on things or getting like any original pieces of art, I work digitally for this book for the most part. So to get an original piece of art, you either have to do the art tier or, to even get my signature, you have to buy these books, because I don't think Adam wants me signing a whole bunch of stuff in these next campaigns, because we're just going to be pumping out books. So, and that'll slow me down. So it may be very rare to get my signature on things or to actually get original art. Of course, you could always reach out to me, and if I have the time, I'll consider these things. Hey, Ryan, thank you. And but this issue is kind of a big deal to me, and it'll only exist in this form this one time. So by the time issue 2 comes around, it's going to be printed as a hardcover. Issue 1 and 2 together, oversized, and it'll be printed like that for the rest of the issues. So this is the only time this comic book will be printed as a floppy.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. And
so that
just
go ahead.
Just to clarify, but when you print number 2, there will be a floppy of number 2, or you got to buy them both together in one book?
You got to buy them both together in one book, and it not only comes with issue 2, but I'm expanding like another 10 pages to add another story that takes place before Armageddon happened. So it'll be the thing that kind of leads up to the nuclear war that happens, and I call it the Apega War. So you'll get not only 48 pages, the first issue of Hammer, the second issue of Hammer. So that's, 48 and 48 is 96. And then 10 more pages, which is 106. And then all the pinups, which is like 112, glossaries, covers, all that stuff will be in there. As a second issue, you should probably be able to get it for like 20 or 25 bucks, which is the same price you're practically paying now for this floppy, but it'll be oversized and contain both issues. So if you want to wait to the second issue, you can do that too.
So Trenton, hope you'll be appearing to push issue 2. I think it means making the rounds on the shows.
I will. That's a huge part of it for me. So yes, I will be making the rounds on all shows. I will let everybody know when issue 2 is going to be coming out. And we'll have tons of art to show people, and it'll be good. So yes, I will make sure that I do the rounds.
All right, everyone. That's all the time we have tonight. Thank you very much, Jason Crager.
Thank you.
Hammer, a post-Ragnarok tale. Check it out. And if you could, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see everyone back soon. Hopefully a new guest before too long.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Have a great night.